Is you ready?
We're good.
All right. I'll call to order the Greenwood Redevelopment Commission on this, the 9th day of March of 2021. May I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Hopper?
I am here.
Mr. Hoover?
Here.
Mr. Moan?
Here.
Mr. Campbell?
Here.
Mr. Harris?
Present.
Non-voting advisor, Mr. Alexander?
On the phone.
Thank you.
We have a quorum. That was everybody, right? It's looking pretty good here. All right. Is there a motion to approve our minutes from our February 9th meeting?
I'll motion that.
Motion by Mr. Harris.
Second.
Second by Mr. Hoover. Any discussion from the commission?
Mr. President, I'll abstain.
Okay. Hearing no discussion, all those in favor, aye.
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 All those opposed, nay. One abstention. Motion to approve passes 4-1. New business, 2020 annual report for various Greenwood Business Center projects. Mr. Hahn presenting.
Ryan Hahn with Veris Partners. Address is 3209 West Smith Valley Road, Suite 241, Greenwood, Indiana. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then I have a PowerPoint presentation that I might help walk through. I'm not sure if I'm able to share that.
It looks like you are. Yep, we see it.
Okay. So this is the second of 10 annual reports I'll be giving regarding the Greenwood Business Center project. This is a property that we purchased in 2018. It's approximately 11 acres at the northeast corner of I-65 and Main Street. When we purchased this property, our intent was to construct a 156,000 square foot building shell. This was built to Class A industrial specifications or institutional specifications. I'll go through some of these quickly because I've given them before, but some of the overall benefits of this project and the reason why there's a overall economic development agreement is this also included the construction of Commerce Parkway West Drive to the north. So the intersection with Main Street and Commerce Parkway West Drive was built as part of our project, and there was a previous incentive approved for the seller of this property to S. Allen Commercial Group, which was repurposed for this roadway construction. So that Commerce Parkway West Drive, as you may be aware of now, connected onto Cheney Road and really opened up development for this entire area, not only for our project, but for the acreage to the north of us, which is now under development, to what I'll call the Windhorse property at the southwest corner, and then also serves the property at the corner of Main Street and Graham Road. In addition to that, our drainage improvements associated with this project eliminated what was a legal drain that went across this corner property. That's now been piped into our detention pond, so that impediment to development has also been removed. So the current project, go ahead. Do you have a question?
I don't think so.
Okay, I'll continue. So next item on the report was the project status. So just give you a few updates in 2020. We completed construction of the building shell in the second quarter in the spring of last year. The performance bonds for the site improvements, and we had a separate performance bond for the public roadway, were both released in the summer of 2020. In September of last year, we signed a lease agreement with Lowe's Home Centers to occupy 92,000 square feet of this building. That's approximately 60% of that building that's leased on the western half of it. And then we all perfected the terms of the development agreement and dedicated and conveyed the right-of-way for Commerce Parkway to the city. That was completed in November of 2020. Tenant improvement work for the Lowe's project began in late 2020 and was completed just before the end of the year. And Lowe's just began operations right at the end of the year. And then this one I didn't update today, but we have been under negotiation with a second tenant that I'll let them disclose when they're ready on the timing, but for the balance of the building. And then happy to report this morning that that lease has been finalized, is under circulation for signature. Talk about project costs, and then real estate taxes is the next item on the report. To date, this is just hard cost. We've expended over $9.6 million. That's not on land acquisition, building shell construction, and then the improvements for Lowe's. That's relative to our original project commitment in July of 2018 of $7.1 million. So we've invested in excess of $2.5 million over that original commitment. Tax assessment, just as a note on this, we haven't received a new assessment for 2021 or our tax bill for 2020 payable 2021. So this reflects previous years. But as of our assessment as of January 1st, 2020, and keep in mind this is when the building was under construction, the land was reassessed. This appears to be a full reassessment of the land at approximately $1.8 million, up from $20,000, and then a partial assessment of the improvements. So this did start, this property was abated, so this started our abatement clock. And we should expect to see the tax bill for 2020 payable 2021 in the next 30 days or so. And then below the line is the previous year's taxes, just extrapolating out the land value increase. Even with the abatement, that works out to, under the current schedule, approximately $50,000 even with the full abatement. So a significant increase in tax revenue that will only grow as the years go on. And then the last item, I don't know if anybody else got a drone for Christmas, but I thought I'd make use of it here. The building, last year I talked about the marketability of the building and then the relative lease activity that's coming to the Greenwood marketplace. As of this morning, we had 64,000 square feet of remaining vacancy that also had 90 parking spaces on it. That has now been leased. So project expectations is that, in the next 30 days, we've requested employment numbers and payroll data from Lowe's in the building. That's going to be reflected on our CF1 form that we're submitting here to the city at the end of the month. We expect the second tenant to begin operation in August of this year, and their employment data and payroll data will be aggregated into our next year's report once we receive them. So I guess bottom line is this has met the timing expectations, the investment expectations, and now we're seeing it to completion where the roadway's been dedicated and tenants are moving in the building. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you have, or I can follow up with anything further.
Any questions from anybody? I guess I have a question. There's been some consternation on the council recently about doing tax abatements for spec buildings. I'm assuming this was a spec building. I don't remember. I'm guessing it was, though. Yeah. Is that true? Was it a spec building originally? Yeah.
It was built as a speculative building, yes.
Are you still seeing demand for those types of buildings, would you say?
I'm seeing demand for these types of buildings. I'm speaking, I guess, outside of Veris Partners because I have no horse in this anymore, but I see there's some other items to this extent on the agenda. But as a resident of Johnson County, I guess one of the things that's lost on looking at these spec buildings, I mean, if you look at our history here, the big press release of last year was the Milwaukee Tool lease, which we competed for as well. But I don't think, as you bat an eye at a Fortune 100 company occupying space in Greenwood after a regional search. This Lowe's deal was a big deal for Greenwood as well. And then obviously Milwaukee Tool landed here. Both of those deals happened in extremely short time frames. I mean, you look at this here that our building was, a lease was signed in September and they occupied in December. There's simply no way you can accommodate that tenant. They simply won't look here without having this speculative space on the market. The second point I'll make on that is that even with this abatement, the 2019 taxes, I paid that myself and expensed it. It was $400 for the year. I guess one of the misnomers here is the taxes, even with this full abatement on this land. This is property that I believe sat here for 20 years with just agricultural land value, and now it's going to put off close to $50,000, I believe, in this next payment cycle, and that's only going to increase as that abatement burns off. So the abatements, and I'm giving you a long answer to your question, the abatements are very important. This building simply, it's not a matter of, these abatements, the taxes are paid by the tenants or passed through to the tenants. And in a market where these properties are competing against other abated buildings and other sub-markets and regional markets, they simply won't get built. The investment can't be underwritten without that unless there's a significant discount on land value or a reduction in construction cost. It's just not there. And then I'm going to answer your question you asked originally, but yes, this market is much deeper. I have no illusion that the buildings that are going to be built and even beyond that will be filled. This, just from the distribution market, the manufacturing market, that was in a cyclical growth cycle before. The pandemic, for better or worse, has only increased the demand for that. So hopefully that answers your question, but that's what we see from our perspective.
Yeah, I think it does. I mean, it's sort of two-pronged, right? If you don't have the building, they're not going to come. And then if you can't pass along the abatement to the business that's going to move into it, they're going to go somewhere else either. So you got to have both, right? So otherwise we'd miss out on the Milwaukee Tools and the Lowe's of the world. And the fact of the matter is, I mean, we can kind of pick who goes into these buildings eventually, because they're going to come to us for a personal property tax abatement, and we can weed through the folks for that as well. So hopefully the folks who don't seem to understand how this works are listening today and hearing from you.
Well, I'm sure Pat Sherman will echo my points, but I had made this slide when we originally applied to it, but this is an example of all the shell buildings of similar size that have been built in other Indiana communities. These were funded at least partially with TIF funds or city funds to attract the businesses. The advantage we've got in this county is that these are, personal investments without the city necessarily at risk for that.
And the irony is the one that we've done that was before my time, but the one that we've done where we knew who the business was coming in is the one that was the swing and the miss. That's the only one that's been knew who it was, right? So, all right. Well, I appreciate it.
All right. I'm off my soapbox now.
Yeah. Well, at least for this 5 minutes anyway. I appreciate you presenting today. Any questions, anybody? Anything?
Just thank Mr. Collins for his presentation. That's very helpful.
Yep, I appreciate it.
Congratulations on your efforts.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear who the other tenant is. Hopefully that is going to be released pretty soon. So,
Yep.
All right, thank you.
Excited to announce it. Thank you.
Resolution 2021-04, City of Greenwood, Indiana Redevelopment District Tax Increment Revenue Bonds of 2020, Series B for the Worsville Road project. Somebody, Adam, is that you, sir?
Yeah, can you all hear me okay?
We can hear you.
Yep, so the next two resolutions are actually with regards to the Madison project that was discussed at your special meeting last week. So I know that Zach Klutz from Taft is here representing you all on the next two from a bond counsel perspective. And then Jennifer Hudson, obviously from London Witty Group, is also here to speak to any of the changes in amortization schedules. So these all roll up and are tied to the Madison project. So the first resolution has to do with the, I believe, Zach, the parity requirements with regards to amending the 2020 bonds. And then the second resolution you have on your agenda is specifically the central TIF revenue bond anticipation notes that Jennifer can talk about and answer any questions that you may have. So with that, I'll open it up if you have any questions on the first resolution.
Commissioners, if I may, this is Zach Klutz with the Taft Law Firm, just to provide a little more context for Resolution 2021-04.
It's on the Zoom call.
This is a resolution amending the resolution that authorized the 2020 B bonds, which is
I'm down.
Brookville Road project bonds.
All right.
Zach, can I have you pause for just a second? Can we mute everybody but Zach? I don't know who that is kind of underneath Zach on our picture anyway, but is that the mayor's office?
Nope, it's not.
Not the mayor. All right. I don't know whose office that is then, but they're on and we can hear them. So hopefully that did it. Go ahead, Zach. I think you're back on.
Sure. So the 2020 B bonds that were issued last June for the Worthville Road project included a blanket pledge of all the TIF arising from the central expansion allocation area. And that doesn't necessarily work because we are pledging 100% of the TIF generated from the Madison parcels to the payment of the developer bonds. So we reached out to Regions Bank, who purchased the 2020 B bonds, and asked if they would be willing to amend the last year's resolution to remove the Madison parcels from the pledge that was made last year by this body. And they did agree to that in principle, and they signed off on this resolution, and they're working through their process to get the consent that's attached as an exhibit executed. So I guess I just want to give you a little context for this particular resolution.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from commission members?
Yeah, I had one, I'm sorry. So, Adam, is this where the debt service coverage number gets thrown in, or is that a later document?
I believe it's the second document where the debt coverage ratio would come into a factor with regards to the bond anticipation note.
Okay. So I need to know.
And one other thing I would just add to what Zach said is the region's acknowledgement or ability to allow this change was administratively quite a bit more efficient. The alternative would have been a single site TIF process that many of us have discussed and evaluated. So the resolution and the solution that Zach introduced, we think actually ultimately saves quite a bit of time and by both your group as well as city officials.
Thanks, Adam. Is there a motion to approve this resolution?
I'll motion.
Motion by Mr. Harris. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Mr. Hoover. All right. Any further discussion from commission members? Seeing and hearing none. All those in favor, aye.
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 All those opposed, nay. All right. Motion is approved 5-0. All right. Resolution 2021-05, resolution of the City of Greenwood Redevelopment Commission authorizing the issuance of bonds and bond anticipation notes for the purpose of financing improvements in the East Side Economic Development Area and paying the cost of issuing the bonds.
Yep. So real quick, just for some additional context here, and then I know that if you have any questions with regards to the specific sizing, sources, uses, or amortization schedule, we can try to field those. But as you saw last week with the larger revitalization of the former middle school site, there were public realm improvements, the streetscapes, the 2 new roads, the parking garage, et cetera. Ultimately, those public improvements are being contemplated to be sourced from a bond anticipation note. So essentially, as if that project agreement is ultimately finalized and that deal breaks ground, as that construction is completed, those draw amounts would be pulled down, and ultimately these borrowings would be accrued. So the maximum amounts are what's listed in the resolution, and this is again noted to pay for the public realm aspects of that public-private partnership, and is to be repaid from the broader central TIF revenue sources outside of the parcels that were just removed for the parity aspect to the 2020 B bonds. So I hope that helps add some context, and I'll turn it over to Jennifer if she has anything else that she'd like to say specifically as your bond financial advisor.
No, I think you covered it very well. If there's any questions, I'm happy to field those.
I just have one. This is Brian. So does the developers funds go in first before we begin to fund?
I'm happy to take that one. So it's the short answer is yes. It depends. It's definitional, obviously, but the current way that we are sequencing the closing is ultimately the approvals on the city's financing of this. So both the developer purchase bonds and then as well as the central bond anticipation notes, all of those essentially have to be approved both through your body as well as Economic Development Corporation for one of them, and then ultimately council for both. Those documents all have to be approved before for the developers group is able to close their senior loan. Okay. Now, what we're doing is you'll notice that both bonds are structured in a manner where if the project does not go off the ground, the developer bond effectively is worthless, and the bond anticipation note, but for some of the issuance costs, would never be borrowed against. So effectively, that's why those bond structures were recommended. To your point, though, if the project does proceed as planned, then the way the closings are structured is that we're prioritizing the developer purchase bond first, then asking the developer to go secure their private third-party commercial loan. From there, it would be closure. The next step would be they would be purchasing the land. From purchasing the land, it would ultimately be the final entitlement process, land alteration permit, building permits, and clearances there, with the expectation the ground would break July 1st. So to that extent, the city's bond anticipation note would not be drawn down until the developer has showed proof of financing and securing of their commercial package, and then ultimately construction is taking place. So I hope that helps at a high level understand the.
To add to that, as an additional process, they will submit as construction happens for expenses that are eligible under the bond, like the parking garage, the roads, etc. Those will come through as basically reimbursements via an AIA draw under a larger contract that the developer will have, that then will be reviewed by the city to make sure that, you know, that much road is actually there, and then we'll do that draw. So there is layers both on the capital stack, and then there's layers of protections on actual draws from the proceeds, so it matches up with real assets.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you for explaining.
Adam, are rates consistent with what we've seen in the past?
I don't know how close you're all following this, but they've actually been all over the map. Jennifer's probably more, she's in the market more, every day, but I know that they've kind of come off the bottom and they've priced up. I don't know exactly cold what the 10-year is right now, but I know that generally speaking, everything's been underwritten and so far at a conservative enough rate that folks are pretty comfortable. But Jennifer, I don't know if you have any updates there on what you're seeing in the market.
Yeah, so right now in the market, the banks are starting to open back up. They're towards the middle of 2020, it seemed like they kind of tightened up a bit on their requirements and term limits. And with the PPP program, they were having a little crunch in available funds. So they were increasing their interest rates for bonds. So at this point, I know I've had some conversations with banks since the beginning of the year, and they're looking to get back into the bonds. They have funds available again. So I anticipate that they're going to be pretty competitive when they bid on the bond anticipation note. And so just as a little background, the bond anticipation note, we can issue that for no longer than 5 years. So it's a short-term financing to get us through construction. Since we don't have any of the construction bids, that way we're drawing the funds as we need them. And then when we're done drawing through construction, then we have an actual final amount that we have to issue for the bonds. And that way we're not over issuing the bonds before we have bids. So I would anticipate, I don't know, right now I think we're anticipating like a 3% in our schedules, and we have plenty of coverage. But I would anticipate that that number would be about correct for right now.
All right, thank you. Any other questions, anyone? All right, is there a motion to approve resolution 2021-05?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Hoover, is there a second? Second by Mr. Moe, thank you, sir. Any further discussion from commission members? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion approved 5-0. Resolution number 2021-06, a resolution approving an amended application for property tax deductions for certain real property located within the East Side Economic Development Area, County Line Properties LLC, 1173 Airport Parkway LLC, Phase 2. I assume somebody's going to talk about this, probably, right?
Yep, Mr. Chairman, Dustin Huddleston, here for the
Hello,
petition.
Mr. Huddleston. How are you, sir?
Good, how are you?
Great.
Thank you. With me on the phone, also on the call, is also the two principals of the LLC, Jeff Smith and Joel Fritz. A bit of history on this, Mr. Chairman and board. You approved two abatements that we requested actually almost a year ago on March 10th of 2020. And we're here to ask to modify the second of the two abatements you approved to actually increase the abatement, because we found we can put a larger building on that parcel, so a little bit more bang for your buck. As a reminder of to the commission of who the principals are, Jeff Smith is the owner operator of Projects Plus, the business located in Greenwood, providing professional engineering and surveying work. They've assisted a wide variety on these projects throughout central Indiana, mainly Greenwood. And Joel Fritz is the president and founder of CTC, a commercial contracting company who's been providing services in the Indianapolis area since 2003. If you recall, a year ago, that the two abatements consisted of the first abatement, which we're not requesting modifying today. That was on one parcel that was 1.82 acres. And that consists building a structure 24,000 square feet. It's 1.8 million of building construction cost. It would be 61 parking spaces. The second one, as it stands now, that was approved, was another 24,000 square feet building, same construction cost, 1.8 million, and this had 55 parking spaces. After your favorable recommendation on March 10th of last year, the Greenwood County Council declared the area as an ERA on April 20th. And then on May 4th, they approved the resolutions that approved the abatements. So since then, we've discovered, like I said, that we can actually, on the second abatement, increase the size by about 38% from 24,000 square feet to 33,800 square feet. So in our submittals, we submitted the dimensions for the new building. And what this does is beefs up and increase the abatement, but also the projected taxes that'll be collected. Right now, the current assessed value for the subject parcel is $2,400. That's the land value because it's vacant. That generates $54.66 in taxes a year. With our old proposal, our construction cost for the building was going to be 1.8 million. Now it's going to be 2.5 million. That's a 39% increase. And then what that does follow suits where the projected building assessment increases by 40% to 1.89 million. The total assessment, the land assessment stays the same, but the total assessment increases 33% to 2.2 million. The big number is the taxes that are paid over the 10-year period of the abatement is now $243,339, which is a 27% increase from our projection on the existing abatement. So again, it vastly increased, echoing Mr. Hahn's statements earlier, the assessed value, even if no tenants go in the building, which we do not anticipate. But even if the structure is up and the life of the abatement as it burns off, it's going to generate much more tax revenue for the city. We are going to break ground on the first building this month, and we've already had interest on that building. As you can see with the dimensions, these are smaller structures than what's going out by the interstate. So we think we have a market there that's in need. And we would request you amend this abatement, recommend approval to the Common Council, and happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, sir. Any questions? All right. Hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
I'll make that motion.
By Mr. Campbell, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Harris. Any further comments? Anybody? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion is approved 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I want to go back because I have written down 4-1 on the approval of our minutes, but it was 4-0 with one abstention. I'm sure I said 4-1, but that's not what I meant. All right. That's why we take notes, right?
Takes minutes.
Spoken like a true lawyer. Yeah, right. All right, that is playing on TV sometimes. Yeah. All right, resolution 2021-07, a resolution approving an application for property tax deductions for certain real property located within the Worsville Road Economic Development Area, GLA Properties LLC, buildings 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Good afternoon. I'm going to kick this off a little bit. So if you remember, my name's Amanda Revenue, and I've been with Aspire for the last year. I'm a vice president of economic development. It's been a year, but it's been a weird year. So I thought I would at least pop back in and just reintroduce myself. Alexis and I have actually worked together for quite a while. We've been connected. So just kind of wanted to give you guys a picture of what we're seeing. Just a real quick, just really actually it's piggybacking on what Ryan already mentioned. You know, of the 68 projects that we have had a submission for this over the last year, 41 of those have been looking for existing buildings. And those are everything from 50,000 square feet all the way up to 1 million square feet. And it's really that speed to market has really been a top priority for those industries. And it's all sorts of industries. We're seeing light manufacturing, you know, food production, logistics, advanced manufacturing. It's been so beneficial to have for a community to have those assets, you know, ready and available to be able to attract those new companies. So real quick with that, I'll go ahead and turn that over to Alexis.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Amanda. I too am going to share a presentation. So let me make sure I get the right screen here. Okay. Can you guys see?
We can.
The presentation? Okay, fabulous. So right, as Amanda said, my name is Alexis Stouter. I'm a project manager with KSM Location Advisors. We are a site selection and incentives consulting firm. We're associated with Cat Sapper and Miller. That's where we get KSM from. We have been a partner of Skinnell's for quite some time as they continue to consider their development and investment plans in central Indiana and most certainly in Greenwood. Out there on the line, I think we've also got Sean Kofer and Courtney Lehman with Skinnell, and they're here. Certainly, if any development specific questions come up, they are on the line and can address those. So this afternoon, wanted to talk with you guys about some potential developments being considered by Skinnell up at Greenwood Park. This specific project is inclusive of 4 separate developments, all 4 developments, capital investment of $51 million estimated. And the tract of land that we're talking about where these developments would be located are right along Allen Road, just east of Collins Road. Currently there, and I too am kind of piggybacking on a lot of themes that Ryan touched on, right? the current property tax liability for that land out there is approximately $6,500 a year if you add up those tax bills. While we're hoping to, get your support for property tax abatement this afternoon on the real estate improvements, we're hoping that we can do that on an alternate schedule that we have found over the years, just with our partnership with Greenwood. It's on an alternate schedule that benefits both the city, with none of the years in that schedule being 100%, but it also provides value to, the future occupants, the future tenants of these developments. So the proposed schedule that we've got outlined here on this slide, you'll see that years 1 through 3 at 80%, and then it kind of tapers off from there, trickling down to year 10 at 5%. So there are a lot of numbers on this slide, but based on the estimated investment value and the proposed phase-in schedule, we estimate that the projects would generate over $5 million in real property taxes. And then once those abatements burn off, right, the annual real property taxes we're estimating at over 1.1 million a year. And I think, again, I know it's a lot of numbers, but another metric that we know just with our experience here in Greenwood that's just important as you kind of evaluate as a commission, and I know the council will certainly look at it too, just over the 10-year period, again, kind of assuming and based on the estimates that are in the budget right now, as far as that $51 million investment, the estimated real property taxes to be paid over the life of these abatements would be about 5.5, and then all in the total abatement value would be 5.6. But again, once all the abatements burn off, we're looking at an estimated annual real property tax bill of about $1.1 million. So really quick, just to give you a sense, again, I know you guys are very familiar with the development up there, but right here to the west would be Collins, and then right here is Allen Road. So you can see the site plan as it's currently envisioned right now. Those yellow numbers are indicative of the order of the developments. And then of course, we've got a table right here over to the right that have an estimated start and completion date for buildings 1, 2, and then 3 and 4 right here. So looking, just really kind of quickly, I think you guys are all very familiar with Scanel Properties, but for those who are, dialed in or, just kind of new to the city, Scanel Properties, they're a privately owned real estate development and investment company. They are headquartered here in Indianapolis, but they do projects all over the world, right, throughout the United States, Canada, and Europe. They've been doing a lot of development in Greenwood for quite some time. I think the first big project you would have seen back in 2015 with Worth Supply, but between Worth, Pitney Bowes, California Custom Fruits and Flavors, QCD, FedEx, those are all projects that Scanel has played a significant role in. Again, headquartered in Indianapolis, they've got a very long-standing and locally headquartered history. And, over the past 31 years that they've been in business, they've done, almost 500 projects, but 450 projects with about 40 million square feet developed to date. So they are very, very well experienced. And I think the one stat that I really always like to point out, because it's just not something that you see with every developer, is that right down here, 70% of their business, right, it's derived from repeat clients. And they have a lot of clients who are household names with services and goods that we all use every day. I thought it would be helpful too to just kind of highlight somewhat on a timeline Scanel's experience here in Greenwood. Again, going back 5 or 6 years, their first major Greenwood project was the Worth Services project, right? I won't read all of these bullet points, but you can get a sense for just the project scopes, the amount of personal property investment that has come along with it. I think Randy may have mentioned, there is control, right? We were here before you and talking about these developments on behalf of Scanel, but when it comes to the tenants and the occupiers, right, you are going to have some control and as they're going to be coming to you for this business personal property investment and most likely an abatement. But worth, $8 million worth of personal property equipment. In 2017, that was really when kind of all the Greenwood Park development began. Pitney Bowes was the first development out there. Again, 16.1 million in personal property. 2018, Project Brutus, that was a significant amount of personal property with $35 million. 2019 brought California Custom Fruits, and then most recently in 2020 would have been the QCD, Quality Custom Distribution Services, right? And that business personal property, that investment came in at about 11.7 million. So all in all, Scanel has a long history. We've successfully partnered with Greenwood over the years, and kind of looking at all of their projects in Greenwood, we've estimated that they've brought about $45 million in assessed value. And that's just the real property. That's exclusive of the business personal property numbers that I've rattled quickly off here. Additionally, just some of the work that Scanel has done in Greenwood, certainly a lot with the Greenwood Park especially. And I think this is really just a testament to the partnership between Greenwood and Scanel, is this private investment that they've made to improving the area out there in Greenwood Park. Won't read through the entire list, but you'll see a lot of improvements, even over improvements of roads, utilities, and like infrastructure. And they've done so without, seeking any additional TIF funding or, getting any additional funding from the city. And the private investment that we've outlined here, it ends up totaling more than $5.8 million. So kind of looking at the project that we're talking about today, these 4 developments and kind of how they fit into Greenwood's, the economic development plan, and thinking about marketing strategy and some pretty realistic assumptions that we can make of future potential tenants. Amanda is incredible. We acknowledge the significant amount of time and hard work that has been put in by Aspire, city officials alike. You guys have created a very purposeful, strategic, realistic economic development plan. And one of the goals in that plan, right, is to be boosting site development for catalyst projects. Again, Ryan hit on it very well, but this project that we're talking about and these 4 developments do just that. There's a range in product sizes that are currently, spec'd for this land. And at the end of the day, continued development of spec facilities is just a must when you're looking to and anticipating, right, kind of planned future purposeful growth, which is exactly what that economic development strategy is meant to do. Thinking about potential future tenants for these developments, they will certainly be ones that you guys continue to have a very good labor pool. So they're going to be users who prioritize a good labor draw. They're going to want easy access to high-speed roadways. And most especially for a few of those smaller developments, it's very common in what we see a lot in our work, reasonable to estimate that it'd be an occupier with some heavy automation. And I think we all know that with heavier automation, that leads to higher skill, higher wage workforce. So, at this point, there's been a lot of inquiry just on the potential for these developments, and reiterating what Ryan said at the front end of the meeting, there are so many occupiers in the market, right, who are only going to be considering development that at the very least is in process. Certainly ones then that need it to be completed, because it truly is all about speed to market. And it's already, and I think like Randy touched on too, they've got to be buildings that have abatement associated with them. Again, we found a schedule that works, I think, very well for both Scanel and the city, kind of starting with those first few years being 80% and then tapering off from there. So in conclusion, we are respectfully requesting your support and recommendation, right, so that we can proceed throughout the approval process and be at council next week. But we are asking that we get your support for a 10-year real property tax abatement. Again, just taking into consideration that Scannell's a proven community partner. They believe in and they share the city's strategic vision to attract high-quality employers. These projects would continue to position Greenwood favorably, right? Having a wide range of spec projects ready for occupancy. And finally, digging into the numbers, even with property tax abatement in place, there's going to be a significant amount of property tax revenue generated for the city of Greenwood. So with that, I will take any questions that you might have.
Any questions from commission members?
The only question I have, this is Mike Campbell. Are you going to make this presentation or a similar one to the council this coming Monday?
That would be the plan. Yes, I believe that we, with success here this afternoon, we would be appearing before council Monday evening.
Good. I think the information you gave needs to be heard by more people than the RDC. And I appreciate the work Scannell has done. So I just wanted to verify that.
I would second what Mr. Campbell said. Yeah.
I do have just a procedural question. We commonly ask the petitioners if they can provide a firm commitment date for both start and completion. We want that to be something that you feel comfortable easily attaining, but we would like to ask for some sort of a firm commitment on the start and completion if you can provide that.
Yeah, I know I put the quarters on the slide presentation, but as part of the application process, we've completed 4 different SV1s for each of these facilities that do have exact start and completion dates in them.
Right, and I understand that, and I anticipate those to be still projections or estimates, and not necessarily firm committed dates. And we would anticipate that any firm commitment that you might be would be even further out in time than what's on your SV1s. And just over the years, we found that that's helpful to have that in place. And if you can provide that would be appreciated.
Yes, so it's certainly an estimate, but should everything be approved and we, follow the approval process, there aren't a ton of hurdles to overcome, and it's already appropriately zoned because of that nature. So for building, for the first 2 buildings, we're planning to break ground here as soon as the abatement approval process, we'd be getting permits filed as soon as the abatement approval process is completed. So I think that'll put us in April. And then for the 3rd and 4th buildings, again, it is estimated, but we would plan that the 3rd building would be breaking ground around August again of this year. And then for the 4th building, which would be the one furthest to the east, it would be about this same timing next year. So April 1 of 2022.
And completion, right now you're estimating end of year 2022. Can you commit to anything on your completion?
Yes. Yeah. Again. Yes. Assuming everything goes according to plan and weather and pandemics cooperate, we would estimate a completion date for buildings 1 and 2 end of Q1. So March 31st of 2022. For that 3rd building, we would estimate that building would be complete by end of July 2022. And then for that 4th building that, again, would break ground about this time next year, that would be completed then by year end 2022.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I've got a question. This is Ryan. A question I have is we're seeing a lot of buildings going up, particularly on that side of town. But are there triggers that you guys see, and can you share them with us when you start to see an oversupply, are there things in the market you look for, and if so, what are those triggers, if you can share it with us?
Yeah, I mean, I am not a real estate broker by any means. Sean and or Courtney, I don't know if you might want to chime in on this too, just as it relates to, your guys' overall evaluation process.
I can handle that. It's a good question, and it kind of comes back to available space in the market, empty buildings sitting around not being taken. I think one of the first building updates that was on this was Lowe's had taken half the building, and there was another tenant getting ready to take that. And we have a lot of interest level in the e-commerce, we call it, site, which is just south of Maine. We have some interest in building one already. And so I think it's a lot of it is the COVID and the industry has driven a lot into that logistics world. And we don't, there's not an oversupply if folks still see the great labor force, great opportunity to invest in Greenwood and diversify away from some of the other places that have more supply, like Plainfield and Whitestown. So it still becomes a really good submarket. And we do keep our pulse on other buildings going up, and we certainly don't want to build a building that can't put a good tenant in it. So it's a good question. And if there were a bunch of empty spec buildings waiting around, we would probably go a little slower, but there really isn't any available space above 110,000 feet. I know there's a 300,000 foot building coming online soon. But outside of that, there's just not a lot of space available.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
I'll motion that.
Motion by Mr. Harris.
Second.
Second by Mr. Campbell. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. All right, motion approved 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Resolution 2021-08, a resolution approving an application for property tax deductions for certain real property located within the East Side Economic Development Area, CA Industrial Holdings LLC, North Graham Road.
Ready to hear?
All right, we can hear you, Mr. Sherman.
Thank you. What you have in your packet is CA Industrial, which is not sure. They've been with our community before developing building. There are two buildings in this application. The first building is a 278,200 rear load facility, and the second building is 429,300 cross dock facility. These buildings are located on Graham Road, on the east side of the street, just north of the new fire station on Graham Road. There is a request for 10-year abatement on these buildings. I want everyone to know I did not pay Ryan. I thought with that abatement, I did not pay him to give this. But I'm certainly appreciative that he did. As Mr. Campbell indicated, I wish a lot of people could have heard that. The spec buildings, as Ryan pointed out, we've got FedEx, Lowe's, Energizer, California Custom Foods, Cooper Tire, Amcor, Amazon, just to name some of the folks that have gone into speculative buildings. And as we've heard, just on today's meeting, how important it is for our community to have these buildings available. Speed to market is something that is very important, and I think it's just a matter of trying to educate our folks to understand how important that is, and these investments in all the buildings that this commission has heard today, whether it's Canal or City Properties, it's large investments in our communities. Just building one, City Industrial Holdings will invest around $23.7 million in that building. And building 2, $16.7 million. So that's a lot of money to put on a line without a lease in hand, and I'm not certain that everyone understands that, but it's certainly beneficial to our community. On building number 1, right now, just for your information, the 22.28 acres in this building, right now they're paying $822 in real property tax on the land. We suspect that, and this is using some of the assessed values on land around the area, and they vary. That number is going to go annually to $75,760. That's the land value. And as you all know, that number is not abated. So immediately our taxes on that building is going to be that annually. There, with the approval of this abatement on building number 1, we expect to have about $3.4 million paid and about $2.9 million abated. On the other building, it's going to be about $2.4 million that will be paid and about $2.1 million will be abated, and all those schedules are in the packet. We have a projected start date that is going to be on building 1. And Stephen, Jim is on the call. Jim McGill is Executive Vice President for CA. And we will indicate that our start date for building number 1 will be by September of 2021 with a completion date of September of 2022. And on building number 2, we have the start date of September 2021 and October of 2022. So those are commitments.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? I think everyone before me certainly did a good job of indicating why these buildings are necessary and why the abatements on these buildings are necessary. I would be available to take any question the commission can have.
Any questions for Mr. Sherman from anybody? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve resolution 2021-08? Motion by Mr. Moe, second by Mr. Hoover. Any further discussion from commission members? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye?
Aye. Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion is approved 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Greenwood Municipal District application, Smocktown Brewery and Pub, Mr. Kenneth John, 223 West Main Street. Bless you.
I don't think that they are here to kind of speak about it, but I did have the chance to review their packet, which was included to you all and was pretty well done, I thought. Probably the most extensive that we've had of one of these. A little background on it. It's been a slow-going building. It's the building right east of Reverie, but it has been a building that has been repurposed almost with a very high percentage of exclusively private funds. We did a One Grow grant there, but it's been invested in significantly more than that, gutted exterior improvements. There was an entire business plan that was outlined in that. They're working on the outdoor patio right now. As I said, I don't have any stake in it, but I'm familiar with the project just due to the nature of the work I'm tasked with at Old Town. So if you want to table it until the packet, I don't think it's incredibly clear on having the person come forward, but on the merits, it seems that pending there isn't any legal objections, it seems to be kind of what we're trying to do with the Riverfront District permit.
Yep. I had no objections to approving it. I've reviewed the packet. Looks neat. Looks well done.
And I'll just summarize that when we receive an application for a riverfront district designation, The commission has the duty to review the application to determine whether the proposed project would provide an economic benefit to the riverfront district and recommend whether the project site should be considered eligible to be a quote permit premises in accordance with Indiana Code 7.1-3-20-16D. Any motion to approve the application should also recommend that the project site be considered eligible to be a quote permit premises and direct the mayor to communicate the approved recommendation to the Alcohol Beverage Commission.
I'll make that motion.
Didn't want to repeat it?
Yeah.
I'll second that.
What did he say? Second by Mr. Hoover. Any further questions from Mr. Steinmetz? Since he seems to be well versed, we'll put him on the spot.
I just think we've wanted, to get restaurants in these kind of older, unique buildings for quite some time, and this gets us a step closer to another kind of eating establishment in Old Town. Long term, I think that's what we're trying to do with this district. So seems to meet the test that Mr. Watson laid out that I don't care to repeat, but it seems to meet those qualifications.
All right, hearing no questions. So all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, nay. All right, motion is approved 5-0. No old business. Capital project reports. Old City Park change order number 01111.
Yeah. So just kind of final, working through. There's still a couple warranty items. We had some things that came in a little under. So I think this was on signs, but it ended up with a $1,500 deduct. So I'd recommend that the commission approve this deduction and it looks like today a lot of people are starting to enjoy the park now that we're in good weather.
In fact, my wife took my kids the other day and they said it was crowded. They wanted it. They said, "What do you want it back the old way where nobody would ever go there?" And they said, "Well, at least we could go without all these people."
You go way back with me on the pool, as does Adam, and you know that every time we build a recreation amenity that's quality in this city, it seems like we should have built it twice as big, which is a good problem to have.
Yeah, we'll probably never build them big enough. So.
Well, I'll move we grant change order 11.
Second by Mr. Moan. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion approved 5-0. Madison Avenue Streetscape Project Phase 3, change order number 3.
This is another deduction. I believe it's $85,000 deduction from that project. There'll be some counters that come against this as we go through the project, but we were able actually, from one of the development sites, probably a spec building, I don't remember which one, we were able to source excess dirt and bring that in, and we needed fill. They needed to get rid of it, so we coordinated with one of those sites over there, and we're able to get a credit on the backfill for Madison Avenue rather than bringing in dirt. So this is a credit and a testament to working with developers and contractors in the city and finding solutions. And this one
another benefit to spec buildings.
That's right. That's here.
Change order 003.
Motion by Mr. Moan. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Hoover. All those in favor, aye.
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 All those opposed, nay. Motion approved 5-0.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Tax increment update.
Yep. Hi, everyone. It's Adam. Can you hear me okay?
You can. Yep.
Great. I have two quick updates. One that I would ask for a motion on is we're in the final stages of preparing your 2020 annual report that's due to the state of Indiana through Gateway next month, just shortly after your next April regular scheduled meeting. We would ask for one of the members to be delegated authority to work with us to make the final review and approval of that, ultimately with final copies coming before you all at your next meeting. In the past, I believe Commissioner Harris has served in that capacity, but certainly would welcome anyone that would be willing to help us review, make comments, and then ultimately submit the final form.
I'll move that we have Mr. Harris continue in that role.
Very, very good. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Harris. Appreciate that. And I'll email you with those specifics. And then the second aspect that I had was actually an update with regards to county commissioners meeting that occurred yesterday. As you may know, the county is pursuing a redevelopment commission, 2 different allocation areas, one east of I-65 and one near I-69. We were there yesterday working with the county commissioners with regards representing the city of Greenwood Redevelopment Commission's behalf. Wanted to let you know of that meeting, and the commissioners yesterday had pulled the one item and then tabled discussion on the other. So if you have any questions, feel free to get with us offline, but we wanted to provide that update as well. That's all I have. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All those in favor of Mr. Harris working with Mr. Stone on this and the city folks indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. All right, that is
One abstention.
One abstention. 4-0 with one abstention. Okay. All right. Department reports. Mr. Hodson.
Legal department has nothing to report.
Thank you, sir. RDC, Mr. Watson.
Nothing today.
Thank you, sir. City Controller, Mr. Wright. Nothing from my office. All right. And everything grinds to a halt with city engineer, Mr. Danson.
Well, I was going to try to say something that I wish I had a couple of items on my on the agenda that had to deal with spec buildings like everybody else, but I do not, so I apologize. I only have 2 items. The first is associated with the Madison Avenue and County Line Road project. If you recall, this is a project where we've entered into an interlocal with Indianapolis DPW for improvements there. The biggest improvement at the intersection will be a dual left turn from westbound to southbound. If you've ever sat in that queue all the way back to the railroad track, you know that's going to be very helpful.
Yes.
So we've, as part of the project and one of our responsibilities for Greenwood, as part of the interlocal, we need to acquire the land necessary for the widening. And so before you here on this slide is the southwest corner parcel. You can see in the yellow, that will be the permanent right-of-way acquisition. There's a minor orange square there for temporary reconstruction of the driveway. The commission approved contracts for appraisals of this property and the southeast corner property, which is on the next slide, back in December timeframe. And we received the appraisals just a couple weeks ago. So the average value of the 2 appraisals for the southwest corner, there before you, $41,100. There's the other information, 0.026 acres is the permanent acquisition. On the next slide, please, Molly. On the southeast corner, 1291 North Madison, we're got similar situation where we've got the yellow shape identifying what the permanent acquisition will be, and then there is a very thin temporary right-of-way for reconstructing and tying in of their driveways. But we'll be acquiring 0.102 acres, and you can see that the 2 appraisals that we received with the average value for this parcel, $139,148 as the average value. So Molly, if you go to the next slide, please. So for funding sources for these, there's a couple eligible sources, or a few, sorry. The Friar Road TIF Central and East TIF. City staff are still determining which one is going to be the best option to use for these. This acquisition was approved by the Board of Works at their meeting a week ago. And then one item that I did want to note, also part of the interlocal, once we have completed the acquisition of these small slivers, we'll actually transfer those back to City of Indianapolis. They have the jurisdiction of County Line Road, so this will be, that these areas will become part of their jurisdiction, their public right of way. So with that, I guess what I'm requesting is the approval of the list of offerings for these two parcels and to authorize city staff to proceed with the offers.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Mr. Campbell. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Hoover.
I just have a question, I'm sorry. So Daniel, the property there, it's a Speedway gas station, right? Is that where we're talking?
Yes.
So how much of that parcel is gonna eat into their property? Do you know?
Well, the graphic there, I've tried to draw it pretty close, so that's a pretty good representation. I know the city's been in negotiations with Speedway for kind of a land swap on the south side to potentially, they're looking at, my understanding is that Speedway is looking how they can improve that facility there with some sort of a new building, new pumps, that type of thing.
Yeah, I know it's kind of tight in there the way it is, and if you take away more of their space, it's gonna get tighter, so I was just curious.
Daniel, are you saying that there'll be a swap for something to the south of there so that they can reorganize that space?
Yes. Yes, it'll be to the south. Essentially, it'll kind of enlarge to the south so that they'll have more room for a new building, new awning, new pumps.
I know this is Mr. Campbell's favorite thing, where we offer this amount and that amount, and it never ends up being this amount and that amount. All right.
That's true.
Yeah. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Our motion is approved 5-0.
Okay, thank you. And then my second and last item is regarding the Graham Road and Keaton Way intersection traffic signal project. This is one that's actually been around for a while. It's been in pause mode due to utilities. We're getting utilities relocated. Okay, there you go. Thank you. Thanks, Molly. Last year, we were able to really coordinate with the utility, mainly the overhead electric on the west side of Graham Road. We had their costs finally included. The developer, I'm going to misstate it and I apologize. The sheer GW2 and GW3 buildings at the southwest corner of that intersection was going to pay for those utility relocations. We've also been working with our contractor, our traffic signal contractor, Midwestern Electric, who's been in pause while all of this utility coordination has been going on. We actually checked with them once we had the green light from the utilities, whether Midwestern was going to be able to perform the work under their original contract amount. Well, materials cost had increased, so before you, we have the two aspects of this contract amendment that I'm going to be requesting. That first, a time extension. Midwestern Electric, they said they've got a number of other projects that they're going to be completing, but they think that they could get to this around mid-May, and then I think the contract has a 60-day duration. So I'm requesting for a time extension until July 31st. That does provide some additional weather delays if that ever comes up. And then also a cost increase of almost $12,486.43. There's the original amount, the original contract amount shown with the new amount. And my understanding from the way the math has worked, if you recall, for this traffic signal, there was an agreement between the city and the developer. So the RDC does have a maximum contribution amount. So in terms of the cost, that $12,000 cost, most of it is going to be paid by the developer. A small fraction of it, or a small portion, was then still going to be absorbed by the RDCs, that maximum contribution amount. So while the construction contract is increasing, there's not really an increase to the city based on the agreed upon RDC maximum contribution amount. And if I've misstated that, Mr. Watson, if you want to correct me, I think I've stated that correctly in terms of the costs to the city.
In general, that's correct. I can't confirm how this relates to the recent finalizing of the contributions from the developer. I thought this was probably included in that, but I can't tell you for sure.
And it is.
Any questions? Is there a motion?
I'll motion.
Motion by Mr. Harris. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Hood. Thanks, sir. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye.
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 All those opposed, nay. Motion is approved 5-0.
I'm sorry.
All right. Thank you very much. That's all I have.
It was Mr. Harris and then Mr. Hoover for the second.
Mr.
We said it at the exact same time.
I thought I heard you, but
And I'm
you
louder,
didn't.
you know.
He's, yeah. and
Okay.
tougher.
Yeah. Did you not say anything, Kevin? Was it Mr. Moan? Nope. We'll give it to Mr. Moan. I don't care.
Yeah,
Either way.
yeah, no, I know. I'll just change my statistics.
I need to make the right notes.
The other paycheck is dependent on how many of these motions they
Yeah.
get in on. All right.
Big one today.
Anything from the mayor? Hello, sir.
Actually, Mr. President, I do.
All right.
Uh-oh.
Of course.
Well, good afternoon, gentlemen, and I want to thank you so much. Today, just keeping count, we just approved 5 speculative buildings to come into the city. We know how important those are to the city and how quickly they get occupied and what tax base they bring into the city. So I deeply appreciate that. And also on the 523 South Madison, you approving the bonds on that. That's going to be one of the most exciting projects we do, probably through all of our entire tenures. And very exciting, very happy. And I really just want to thank you all so much for the support you've given to our administration and to the city and to the growth that we're showing. So thank you.
You're welcome, and thank you for all the hard work we know your team and you put in. So we appreciate
Yeah, I
it.
wanted to compliment him on putting together such an excellent staff to do all the work.
I am very, very proud of my staff, and I can never say enough good about them. So thank you, Mr. Campbell.
You're welcome.
The other Mr. President.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, sir. Claims docket in the amount of $1,845,565.50. Any questions or motion? I'll take either.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Mr. Harris. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Moan. Thank you, sir. Any questions from anybody? All right, hearing none, all those in favor, aye.
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 All those opposed, nay. Hearing none, it is approved 5-0. Anybody else out there here or in internet world have any questions or business to come before us? All right. Hearing none, we will adjourn. Thank you, everyone, very much.
Thank you, Mr. President. I need to go park my school bus now.
All right. Be safe.
Do you have anything you need me to sign?
You need to sign the docket.